I'd like to call the regular board meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order. It's October 10th, 6:30. Why don't we start with a roll call?
Right, Manager Lowe,
Here.
Manager Anderson, here, Manager Baki,
I am here.
Manager Taves,
Present and accounted for.
President Schmaltz.
Here. So we have a full quorum then, or full attendance. Thank you. Moving on then, setting the meeting agenda. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I'd like to suggest, under old business, I guess now, just a further discussion about this visioning path that we're on. I have some questions about that. I brought up some of them at our special meeting, but I'd like a further discussion about it.
Okay, we'll add that then. Any other additions or corrections? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended by Manager Anderson.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Manager Taves. We have a second. I'll second that motion. Troy, can we please do a roll call vote?
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye, so the motion carries, the agenda's been set. New business. The only new business we have today is the 2025 meeting schedule and calendar. And Emily, do you want to go through that with us?
I can. Also Mike Kinney just joined, but it's a simple item, so I can introduce it, Mr. President and managers.
Well,
this
is
is-
Mike here? Let me see if Mike's, I thought he
Oh, here
might
he
be
is.
here or not. Okay, Mike's here. So Mike, you want to take that then, at least initially?
Mr. President, managers, no, that's fine. Emily put this together, so it's a annual thing that we do.
Okay, great. Emily, back to you then.
Okay, so yes, every year the district, the board needs to adopt its meeting schedule. And so that by adopting this meeting schedule and having it posted at our office, we satisfy that open meeting law notice requirement for regular board meetings. And then on top of that, we also send out the emails and post things on the website and everything, and that kind of goes above and beyond. But the big thing to do is to approve the meeting schedule, and then we have that at our office. And then starting last year, we've added this calendar of anticipated agenda items, just because a lot of our work is kind of recurring on an annual basis. And so we can plan ahead kind of the capacity that we anticipate for certain agendas. It's not set in stone, it's subject to change, but just gives you an idea of what to expect throughout the year.
Okay, good. Any comments?
I like that calendar, the meeting calendar. That's really helpful, the month by month.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? I thought that the addition of the page about the criteria for convening a closed session and also special emergency meetings was good. That's good to have that in front of us, I think. I don't think we've ever had that before. That's a very good addition. So staff, thank you for doing that. It's right in front of us, something we can say for the whole year and keep it in front of us. So with that, if no other questions, we'll entertain the motion, which is written on the bottom of the first page. If somebody would like to make that motion.
I will move to approve the 2025 board meeting schedule.
Thank you, Manager Taves. And the second by another manager,
Second.
seconded by Manager Anderson. Thank you. Then we'll do a roll call vote. Sorry.
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye. So the motion carries. Moving on to old business. An update on the floodplain vulnerability assessment.
And Mr. President, managers, I'll let Emily kind of go over this, but as noted, Emily and I had a meeting with Sand Associates and UR to kind of start this process. I think it was helpful at a not at different levels, but Emily, if you want to give a little more update, that's be great.
Mr. President, managers. So just a quick update here and recommended kind of scheduling. So EOR is underway with the phase 3 modeling work that was approved at the August 22nd board meeting. They expect to be able to present the results to the board at the November 21st board meeting. With this in mind, EOR and staff are recommending holding off on the community engagement workshops until after the board has reviewed the phase 3 modeling. And by that point, probably best to wait until after the holidays. I know this pushes our timeline out another couple of months, but we'll still be on track to apply for implementation grants next year. And we think that it's better to review the modeling with the board first, just given the discussions that we've had and the level of detail that the board's participated in with respect to the mapping and things like that. So we would recommend completing this step before bringing anything to our partners. We don't expect that the community engagement workshops will get as detailed into the modeling as the board meeting presentations and discussions, but it'll be a good chance to make sure we're all on the same page before engaging partners. And so Zan Associates is working on our equity analysis, and we met earlier with them, and they're going on that, as well as the community engagement plan. And so we can still, with this proposed timeline, we'd complete this work early in the new year and still be really well positioned to apply for grants in 2025. A couple of the big ones on our radar, the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Fund and Bowser Water Storage Grants. Those application deadlines are anticipated to be in May. Additionally, the Pollution Control Agency offers multiple rounds of climate resiliency grants and will be well positioned to apply for those in 2025 as well.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Are there any questions or comments? Emily, you mentioned there was a reference here for 9 Mile Creek's diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility plan. I haven't had a chance to look at that. Would you recommend that we look at that just to get a better feel for what that part of the plan is about?
You certainly can, and we can send that link out for your convenience as well. But that's just one element of this community engagement plan. But I think it's an important one, and it gives some good context. And certainly our watershed, each watershed is unique. And so ours might not be exactly the same as 9 Mile. But I think it's a good example of equity planning that's going on by kind of our fellow watershed districts.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? This is not an action item tonight, so we're just planning for information. Okay, hearing none, then we'll just move on then to the shoreline program review.
All right. Good evening, Mr. President, managers. Attached as a memo is kind of an update on this program review process that's been proposed. So myself, Adam Gelb, and Administrator Kinney met with managers Schmaltz and Anderson and came up with this idea that we need to be doing a little bit more in-depth research on the existing literature that exists as regards to shoreline restoration and implementation. In conjunction with that, we'll be doing a review of existing shoreline restoration programs that are relevant to our work here in the district. And I'll note that this is a process that we did in previous years with our Green Corps member, Jess Hall, back in 2022. And so this effort will be supervised by myself, but conducted by our Green Corps member this year, Julia Grebo, that we met at the last board meeting.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments? There's my only question, I guess, Aiden, would be that there's quite a few contacts to make if you just look at that one letter or that one report that we looked at. Can we get this done, as you said, in October?
That's a great point.
Maybe you've already started on it too. I don't know.
We have already begun the process, and so we actually met to review the timeline for this. So we have a couple checkpoints that we've put together, but we anticipate at least contacting a number of program managers in the month of October. That's kind of the part of the timeline that we can control. We do anticipate the more in-depth review process continuing later into the year. just as folks are able to get back to us or as we're able to contact some of the folks that we'd like to get a little bit more information about how their programs work. But we do anticipate having a good chunk of a literature review complete in October with something to be able to bring to the board in November.
Okay, great. Look forward to that. All right, thank you, Aiden.
I have a
Oh,
question.
sorry,
Yeah.
Manager Anderson has a question?
Yeah, are you going to be reviewing with the DNR the success of their Score Your Shore program?
That is
Not
one
the
of the
one-
documents.
Yeah, not the one that you did, that, not that broader one, but the individual property focus program.
Yeah, you're referring to the Score Your Shore kind of outreach materials that the DNR has
Yeah.
developed.
Yes, but they also have a pledge program where people can go on to that DNR site and make their pledge, you know, via that way, more of a public pledge. So there's a little bit more to it in that front end. And I just wonder, I think that program is pretty remarkable, but I don't know how successful it's been. So in your evaluation of all of this, will you be looking at that program as well?
Yeah, so the Score Your Shore program is definitely something we will include in the program review. I will
Okay.
add a note to make specific reference to see if any of the program managers or other watershed districts that we encounter have used this as an outreach tool and what their observations are. A specific element of this review that we are interested in is these ideas of community adoption that drive the kind of organically grow beyond just the watershed districts, just the technical partner contacts. So I'll make a note to specifically use this program as one that we are interested in exploring.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Aiden. Any other comments or questions? Okay, then, why don't we then move on to our item, discussion of the vision. And Manager Anderson, maybe you want to introduce this topic?
Yeah, I have the same question that I presented at the special meeting. I was a little confused about how we are looking at doing a vision statement, a broad vision statement for the organization, when in the past, the visioning was focused more on the building. I don't remember anything coming up about creating a vision statement, you know, beyond our mission. So I'm confused by that. I reached out to Manager Baki, thinking that maybe this was something that came up in the SMART goal thing, but you know, on a quarterly basis. I think he mentioned something about, well, he can speak to this, but I think he mentioned also that he thought this was part of that process for going the next step with the building. But I really need to understand why we're doing this right now, because to me, it's not a priority item. I didn't think that we had a problem with people not understanding our vision, our staff not understanding our vision. I know we have some new people here, but they're not that new anymore. And I think it's pretty well laid out and has been on what our purpose is. So I really hate to see us veering left when we have such a program, a plan laid out for our building needs. And I hate to waste this time if we don't need to. So I'm just searching for an answer on why the need is on a vision statement for the entire organization and not visioning on the building. I think that covers it.
Mr. President, was another manager going to comment on that?
I'll say something, but you can go first, Mike. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, yeah, good to have this conversation. And I didn't, at no point did I think this was a visioning piece for staff. This is for the board. And we may, if there's a clear direction of what we want for a building, it's not very clear to me. I'll be honest, because there's a big difference between having an organization that's really going to be expanding on education outreach. What is our potential footprint? What what services are we going to provide? Is there intention to have a public space, meeting room for additional uses, things like that? I don't think that's ever really been articulated clearly, and or at least not from a unified vision from the board. And it has everything to do with how the board feels the organization is moving into the future. There was a lot of great discussion at the last meeting on this, on our first meeting on this, I felt, by the board. And, you know, there were a few takeaways that I was going to share at the next meeting, but I'll just share them now. One is that one of the main things we recognize is the public relations side, the value of that with our partners. We've annually set liaisons both at the board level and I do internally with staff. And I have on next week's staff meeting a reminder to let's get back into reviewing materials and supporting the board and saying, here's an item on the upcoming agenda for so-and-so organization that we should be maybe keeping an eye on. So, but those all things come together. I mean, we don't know. There's been talk around the table about the Lower St. Croix becoming an entity. What would that look like? And let alone, there's been really nobody seems to have a handle on how much community space is needed in any particular community. So we've asked ISG, they didn't come up with anything. There doesn't seem to be any metrics from the League of Minnesota Cities or anywhere else, even though you would think it would be a tremendously important piece of information from a standpoint of providing services to the community. So, and I think ultimately, we may have a great vision of where we want to be as an organization in terms of flood resiliency and some of the other things, and working on shoreline, but it goes beyond that. So that's my input on it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Any other comments from the other board members?
Crystal
Okay.
has- Or he did.
I'm sorry, Victoria.
President
Chris
Schmaltz?
has-
Oh, Chris, go ahead.
You go ahead, Doug. I'll go after.
Yeah, my understanding this is kind of like setting the guiding star for the efforts of the organization. I didn't see anything to do with the building. I think every organization needs to have that point that says, this is where we are going, this is what we want to do. And it's simple and succinct to the point where people can buy into it without having to read pages of stuff. My issue with what we got to work with is that the statement, our vision or our vision is, it's an exclusive thing. It says it's our vision. It needs to be the whole community's vision. So I changed that to we will instead of our vision is. Is a passive statement. Again, that brings back that what I would say is we will protect and preserve natural resources for the betterment of the generations to come. Everything else comes under that umbrella. We have all kinds of mission statement or we have our objectives, we have our goals, we have our mission statement, but this is the vision of the organization. This is the overarching why we are here and what we want to get people to buy in to do with us. It has to be inclusive. And I think it's an overarching theme, and I don't see it in any other document, but granted, I could have missed it, but I don't have a problem with setting this. This is kind of the North Star of the organization and what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Chris, you had your hand up also?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I think in addition, I see the value and I see how it does tie in with the considerations that are going to be made with what the space is going to look like. Whether or not it's required for some sort of grant is kind of a secondary point, in my opinion. But I think the real value is going to come, and I believe, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as we do this strategic planning, we're going to come up with a vision, and then Yanni is going to walk us through some, KPIs and things that can make sure that we're accountable to things. And I think that's where the true benefit and value is going to come from that. And then that way the public also has some sort of understanding of where we're going. I think we all know where we're going. That's really easy. I think that's really obvious. But I think when it comes to the public's perception of our organization and what we do. To me, the vision is important to have. Like I said, I was surprised that we didn't have one, to be honest with you, so.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments?
Manager Schmaltz.
Go ahead, Dave.
I agree that Manager Anderson makes a good point that this conversation in strategic planning and visioning needs to lead us to outlining how this would impact our office space. So I would just encourage us to move in that direction at some point as part of our strategic planning to identify. I think at our last meeting, we were fairly clear about the need for education and outreach. That in itself helps us realize that our office space needs to include a room or space to meet those needs.
But all of that was presented to us by ISG's report back in January. So I guess that's my point, is that, you know, we spent all this time already on a, we know we need a building because this is not adequate. It's not adequate now. And it's certainly not going to be adequate for the increase that we're going to be doing in education and so forth. And so I just personally feel that we've just been sort of derailed. We have a mission statement, we have a purpose. And so we know that it's expressed in our 10-year plans. And if we need to come up with a vision statement in addition to that, that's fine. You know, the more pressing thing to me is the building and getting a handle on the building. And we're looking at six, I think it was 6 meetings that we were looking at extending for this process that we're now starting on a whole different path, which is much more, I think Chris said it, strategic planning for the organization. And you know, which is the higher priority. For me, it's the visioning for the building that we've been talking about for 2 years.
President Schmaltz.
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
I think I hear what you're saying, Manager Anderson, but I think what I'm thinking is that these are not separate things. These are connected.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think also
Agree.
the building is really, it's just like an AIS program or floodplain vulnerability or phosphorus reduction program. It's one of the elements that comprise our mission. And we may or may not end up with an educational building. You know, that a lot depends upon how the school systems and how the community reacts and responds to that opportunity. So, but that's something we're getting into now with DOR in leading strong ways.
yeah,
I think it'll be, but what we need as a vision statement though is this higher level view. North Star is a good example of it, general enough that encompasses a lot of the things that we've talked about already.
that's typically a mission statement. And then your vision statement is how you're going to accomplish it. It's
Right.
really more of that second level tier. But, you know, we, again, to me, I just think it's taking away from the critical time that we need to start moving on this new pathway that we have for getting a building without all the angst of trying to fund it.
Okay, that's one option we're gonna look at, but I think EOR is driving this now with our staff.
Mhm.
And so we've got somebody working on this, we've got a timetable on it. We should just follow that now and move ahead with it as we progress on that area, I'd say.
On the building?
Yes,
Where's that timeline? I haven't seen it.
well, I think EOR, when is EOR gonna come back to us, Mike, with some of the feedback on the building?
I'd have to check. I don't know if it's really set, but
Yeah, we should set that, yes, that's pretty important that we move ahead on that whole thing. I mean, again, we've had a number of things that we could do on our own, is assessing the properties, for example. Stuff like that, and I think, so essentially, we're relying on EOR now to help us put that action step program together and maybe get a timeline on it, like we do with other programs that we've worked on in other projects, so. I don't think it's gonna take us a lot of time to pull this vision together. I think we had a good meeting the first time, and I think we'll wrap this up pretty quickly. And we have to see how much time we have to spend on the metrics. I think our metrics have been pretty good in the past. And I think once we decide what the vision is and when we get our priorities set, I think our metrics will be fine, but maybe our consultant can add some additional thoughts in that area. It's probably worth a look at to see. Is there anything else? Any other comments? I guess what I'm saying, Manager Anderson, I don't know what, we can try to accelerate what ER is doing, but we've got to play on that area. And it sounds like maybe it should be more specific than it is. So something in that area would be helpful, I guess, so we can have at least a timeline to look at how we're gonna move on between now and next spring, to see where we're gonna be then.
President Schmalz.
Yes, Chris.
I'll just make one more comment with respect to the organization's I guess status with the public and where we are with our outreach. We all want to move full speed ahead with the building, and we want the public to want what we want, but it's going to take time for the public to I guess either agree or not agree with what we think we need to do. And I feel like the vision is just one part of it. It's just one tool that can be used to during the communication and outreach and when we get buy-in from our constituents.
Yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. It's what should happen anyway, as we move down the path here, so. But we've got to get a framework put together that we can present something to the constituents on what we think is required. And then begin to have that feedback back and forth. And it's more than just the public. We've got the school system. If the school system isn't interested in supporting us, we're not gonna get very far unless we go to Chisago or someone outside the Forest Lake area. And probably want to do to all those school systems. In fact, we want to just not have it to one local school system. You've got school systems up Chisago and so forth, right?
I don't,
Yeah.
can't answer that. I don't know what the school's role is going to be in all of this. I mean, you clearly have thought about something. I don't think the school is involved in what we're going to be doing.
Well, what I've seen in other places like the one down south here, the schools send 1,500 kids a year or a season through this program. So
Mhm.
that's the kind of support you'd want to have, I think. But that's something we have to work through. And I think if we do some benchmarking, nobody's really showed us a successful educational program that I'm aware of yet. The one that I think seems to be the most successful is the one, I don't want to say it's South Woodbury down there, but in that, the one that was talked about recently, where they've got a building that's their own. And the school systems in St. Paul and other places are sending students there on a regular basis.
Oh, there are those. I mean,
Yeah.
Warner Center that closed here a few years ago.
Right.
Was something like that, but that's pretty sophisticated for starting out. The message that we really need to get out to people, and we should have been doing it, was how they can impact the waters within our boundaries. And how water connects everything for us. And a drop here is gonna end up, somewhere else. It's not gonna stay there. That more broad kind of education about the responsibility that we have for the water as individuals. That's the kind of education that I've always thought about, not this more detailed programmatic stuff that is already out there with some of the other entities that might grow into that over time. And that cooperation with the schools certainly can grow over time. But it's not a stage one priority for me.
Right.
So
Well,
anyway,
Well,
that's.
again,
that's what
we're
I'm
off topic here. We're talking about the vision.
Yeah.
The vision really should be something that's overreaching and should reflect the fact of what you talked about. Do we want to do this ourselves, or do we want the community to take responsibility for it? So those are the things we're trying to work through in the vision right now. So I think we spent enough time on this.
Yeah, it's two different things. I'm hearing that there's a need from the other board members for this type of visioning exercise. I just want to stay focused on priorities that are with us and have been with us for a few years. And but anyway, it is what it
President
is.
Schmalz, President
Yeah,
Schmalz,
Manager Taves?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think the vision statement is the hook that brings people into what we want to accomplish. I think that's what a vision statement is all about. Thanks.
No, and we need that, as Manager Anderson said, to be successful. And of course, there's a lot more to be said about that, and for how we do it and how long it takes, as Manager Rose pointed out also. It's not something that's gonna happen in 1 week of sending out brochures, obviously, so it's something we have to work at over a period of time. If everybody's okay, then we'll move on then.
Okay.
All right, we've got our next meeting coming up this fairly soon, so that I think we'll make some more progress at that second meeting. Program project update. Mike, are you gonna cover that?
Did we skip a couple items?
Excuse me?
Well, the project update is, and these are slides that we put together, like, based on our current, projects. There was also some requests for some information about, how our phases operate, and so this is, just sort of a high level overview of some of the steps that any one particular project, and each one of those, under each phase, any of those other plus signs. There's another whole series of things that the staff have documented and collaborated and work with Chuck on, and EOR to make sure we're moving forward to things. The other two projects, JD6 and the Moody Capstone, we're in that wrapping up phase, getting the final pay apps and materials from the contractors. So looking forward to, the only thing that we've probably would have left is just the warranty work on each of those projects. So, but everything's looking good. And if you had a chance to get out to the Round Barn on Moody Lake, be great to do so. We do have some signage that we're going to work with or start developing, or have started working on developing for both of these project sites in Highway 61. Some more of those coming forward. And on the other items, I don't think there's much updates on those really. So.
Any questions from anyone?
And the signage you're talking about are these big projects here that you're showing, like JD6? Western
Right.
Tributary, okay.
Yeah.
And we'll see the board will see some type of preliminary sketches or something on these signs? Is that
Right,
correct?
yes, so, I mean, we need to work with MnDOT and others too, to make sure we're all,
Of course.
and zoning and things like that, but yes, so we'll,
Mhm,
yes.
okay.
So work through those pieces first, and then on the design stuff, we'll. yes.
Well, it's really important that we get that done. I've had more calls on this JD6. I think you've mentioned it at one meeting too, that people were asking you what that big open water area is. And someone
Mhm.
mentioned it at the celebration, the 25th celebration evening. And what is that and what are we doing about it? And people are concerned about that open water, and it's so close to the highway, and whatever else they have concerns about. But getting a sign there is going to be really important.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Any other questions? I had just a question on the Lassarne's grant. Where do we stand on the, I know we have the grant, but what does the project look like right now in terms of where we stand and what the outlook looks like? We haven't heard about that for a while. Maybe you just update us quickly.
Yeah, so the landowner is still in discussion with another entity to buy a good portion of the upland, but the other entity that would like us to buy the wetland portion. And from our history working with the landowner, it's just a question, we're just not, I am no longer, I guess personally, very convinced that the landowner really wants to sell. He's been on that property for 50, I think, some years, and so it's difficult. I understand that, so, but. Cause I think he would have made a deal with these folks if he was gonna make a deal by now, so that's just my hunch. But we have no updates, even though I've been asking Blaine every couple of weeks. Like to push or to communicate and, either talk to the other entity or to the owner. One of the two, kind of go back and forth, but at least keep our foot in the door, trying to maintain the line of communication. But we don't have anything to update.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I guess we'll just keep at it. It's too good of an opportunity to completely ignore, so we should just keep putting time into it as we have available.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else for Mike? Okay, with that, then let's move on to the program update for education and outreach. And there's a sheet in your packet on this. Again, it's just for discussion and information.
Yeah, Mr.
Adam, are you
President,
gonna handle this?
managers.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get going on a PowerPoint here. Hopefully you can see that. So we're gonna chat a little bit about some background, try not to get in the weeds too far. Some of the bigger items that we have going on, and then kind of a heads up on some events we have our program focus coming up this fall, so. Just a recap, education outreach, kind of the guiding documents, the big monster 10-year plan. Gives us big general focus. We get down to the comprehensive kind of E&O plan, more strategies, 5-year. And then the implementation plan is a year-by-year, very specific kind of actions, activities. And then we have metrics that track those. We kind of break it out into goals. There's 2 big goals with the implementation plan. Increase public knowledge, and then kind of communicate, share with folks what we have, what we can offer, what folks are doing, that kind of stuff at the watershed. So 2 big goals. And then those goals are broke down even further. For example, goal 2, kind of what we have going on with programs, projects. You can read them, but I'll go through them a little bit. It's kind of those outgoing communications to the public. We're trying to constantly increase. I'm, going on 10 months at the watershed, working off of the background that was there. I know there's been, a lot of communication or a lot of discussion of, boy, no, there wasn't much for education outreach going on, that this isn't getting done, that isn't getting done. Luckily, I'm new. So I'm looking at a lot of, what was done, the foundations that are there, how can we build on that? Come from an education and watershed background. Like I created the program that the Sauk River has. It took me a long time. I was there 17 years. Education outreach takes some time. So we're building off of what's there. So trying to increase those outgoing communications. B is social media. Right now we're active on Facebook. We don't have much going on Instagram yet. So we got to work on that. Increase the new email addresses. So we use Constant Contact. It wasn't used much previously, except for board packets. How can we change that? What can we do? How can we increase those numbers? Increase the numbers of district-sponsored events. That's kind of my bread and butter. I know, like Manager Loth, Manager Bakke have talked about, events, face-to-face connections. That's how you get the word out and make those good connections. Cost share grants, different programs Aiden has, other things going on. Again, a lot of those are face-to-face direct contact. And then always trying to increase audience diversity. We have a youth program or somewhat of a youth program. How can we expand that? How can we expand to underserved communities in our area, things like that? So we're trying to increase all these. Then we can break those down and we have metrics that are again, previous staff had set up and did a pretty good job, I think, in my opinion, of how to track these metrics. So under goal 2B, we're going to increase the number of users for social media. So we're trying to increase the Facebook posts, the connections on Facebook, things like that. In January, you're going to hear me go through much more detailed of kind of the year-end summary implementation plan for 2025. Right now, I'm just trying to I'm trying to start big, work your way down. And for example, here we go with Facebook. It is a super busy slide, but in the red are the baselines. And Yeah, and I'm doing my best to work off the foundations, the information that were there or available when I started. So currently on average in 2023, that's our baseline year, 2023, reach was about 345 on average, and this is per month. And reach is just, they looked at it. Content interactions about 51 a month. And that means people shared it, liked it, posted something, commented on there, and then link clicks if we had a link on there that went somewhere, went to more information, went to a resource, things like that. So that's kind of our averages. March is when we really started stepping up the Facebook. I started the end of January. February was just learning about this organization, trying to wrap my head around it. I think Facebook is a great tool. It's a very cost-effective tool as well. And you can see the numbers. We're slowly but steadily increasing. If we took the average and we put a trend line on there, we're certainly on the way up. Some months are more popular than others, depends on the content that we have going on. Follower change, slowly but steady, we're increasing. And then the link click. So we're getting, I don't know, one a day, one every other day. All depends on the material that we have going out there. August was a banner month for us, and that is really because we were pushing State of the Watershed hot and heavy. 1,818 reaches. Lake associations were sharing the information. Other partners were sharing the information. We were posting constantly with articles in the newspapers. We had a pretty good reach. We had folks checking it out. September kind of leveled back out. Right now we have about, I looked this morning again, it's like 500 followers, but 494 is kind of the followers that we have. We don't have a ton of good analytics because it wasn't tracked very well before. So I did my best to get those kind of baseline averages. But now we're tracking it a lot better. And you'll see when we do the end of the year report, I'll really break this out. And then kind of here's our Facebook. Before we just randomly were putting stuff up on Facebook in 2023, events we had going on, programs that we had going on, things that we wanted people to see. My opinion is the way that Facebook's algorithm works the best is if you post something almost every day. Keep people engaged. Keep them looking or wanting to go, like, I'm going to check on the Facebook today. I know they've got this going on, like every day. Keep up with it, which is time consuming. And our schedule is Monday, we do water quality tips. Tuesday, Native Plant Tuesday, probably our most popular one right now. Wildlife Wednesday, share some kind of critter that we got in the district. Thursday, I was doing kind of a did you know, the different activities, things like that we had going on. Not that popular. So we're actually going to start in November doing a throw way back Thursday. Not just to the 90s, but way back what was going on in the watershed. Different projects, public drainage systems, WPA projects, things like that. Friday is kind of my catch-up day, and we're certainly always posting news events, partner materials, things like that. The way I do it is I make up a ton of them ahead of time, and then I have them handy so I can just pull them as need be. Like Native Plant Tuesday, I probably got a couple hundred made up ahead of time. So I just pull them off as need be or post them as need be. And you can schedule it too. Facebook, you can schedule it that those posts will automatically do it. So that's what we got going with Facebook. Instagram is kind of hovering, but I think that's another one. Traditionally, Facebook, I'll age myself a little bit, but Facebook users tend to be a little bit older, Instagram a little bit younger. So again, a little more diversity. Let's go to Instagram, try to get a little younger crowd too. There's been, quite a bit of discussion, quality versus quantity, a bit of both. Manager Baki and I, boy, we could go, our backgrounds are education. We could go into pedagogy and paradigm shifts forever here. I look at community education as one of the tools I've used in the past and had really good luck with it. And I think it does quality and quantity both. And you'll see I'll go into this a little bit. Here's one of the ads right from the Forest Lake Winter Community Ed Catalog. That's one of our class offerings. The way I look at it, quality in the red, we're offering education right in the write-up. So we're educating folks on what rain barrels do, how they can save money, how they can help the watershed, the environment, things like that. Even if folks don't attend the classes, the Forest Lake Community Catalogs probably go out to 15,000 households. yeah, maybe half of them are within the Comfort Lake watershed. So even if they don't attend the class, they still are getting the catalog. Yes, plenty of them are going to throw it in the recycling, but some are going to flip through it for some other stuff. And now they see the watershed is doing classes on rain barrels. Oh, and what are rain barrels? Here's a little bit of info in there. In the middle, then we plug it like, what are you going to learn? Why should you attend this class? And then I always put a little bit in there, and you can see in the yellow that folks are going to see that, hey, you're eligible for a free rain barrel if you're in the Comfort Lake Forest Lake watershed. And I've had a lot of folks that will call and say, hey, I saw this in the newsletter or the catalog. I wasn't able to make the class, but what can you tell me about this free rain barrels? Half of them probably are from Rice Creek watershed, and I politely send them over there and give them contact of those folks. But I'll answer questions on rain barrels in general or things like that, or I'll refer them to Aiden or things like that. So, and usually the participants, we always give them free native plant book. We try to incentivize their attendance. We don't charge, what am I trying to say? We don't charge the schools for the classes. The schools charge the participants. So most of the classes are like 10 to 20 bucks, and that's for the school to recoup their costs. We don't charge the school anything. They get a native plant book and they get an info folder. They're getting their 20 bucks back in materials. And then we usually have native plant seeds or something to go with it. So quality is, if people attend, it's the face-to-face connection, or they call and ask questions. The quantity is, the schools are doing a lot of work for us. They are putting these catalogs out all over the place. So free advertising, free education as well from our part. Or, I mean, my time's involved here, but it's a big reach. Questions on that, I guess? I went through a lot of info there really quickly.
I like the way it's organized. I think you've got some really good strategies and what you're trying to cover in each of the listings. So that's great. It's great work.
Manager Schmaltz.
Yes.
Adam, I'm just looking at the Facebook page right now. I didn't know this was up, and it looks great. I mean, there's so much information here that people would find interesting, and just, you know, say, hey, I need to contact these people. I mean, the black bear stuff is great because everybody's experiencing black bears, it seems, these days. I ran into one. And then the blue thumb, the wild lupine. I mean, it's just great information. So well done.
Thank you, Manager Rocky.
Yeah, I think it's very well organized, you know, and it's a long time coming. And I love the statistics that you're creating so that we can have some type of a measurement of these. But, you know, anything is better than nothing. And you're way beyond that. I mean, you've provided structure and it's consistency. You know, you're repeating messages in different ways, and one of them will trigger, you know, different people will have different triggers. And so I like that aspect of it as well. So yeah, I agree. Nice job.
And one of the big things, you know, PR versus outreach versus education, the example I like to share is a lot of folks that'll attend a class. Let me back up. Folks drive by the watershed building. I don't know what's traffic counters. We have a lot of traffic past there. There's a big sign hanging on the side of the building. People attend class and say, I have no idea where the watershed, like, where's your office is? And then I say, oh, we're next to Kodiak Coffee. Oh, I've drove by there. I always wonder what you guys do. Oh, you do classes, you do things like this. So you kind of get that connection.
We need a sign. We need a sign.
But you know, a couple hundred people, probably 1,000 people a day drive by the office and see the sign, but they just don't make that connection necessarily. Yeah. So keep going on the classes and workshops really quickly. So the baseline, again, did my best, chatted with other staff, tried to get on SharePoint or a data pool and get some numbers. 2023, again, there was some staff turnover changes, things like that. That throws it off a little bit. But we did 4 kind of classes and workshops. About 50 people attended those. This year in spring, now I'm just counting kind of those community ed, which is Chisago Community Ed, Forest Lake Community Ed, and the Hardwood Creek Library. Going to expand that to Wyoming. Going to expand that even more. Chisago and Hardwood Creek are amazing. We get 10, 20 people for each one of those classes. Forest Lake, even though it's a bigger community, is hit or miss right now. So I need to work with them, maybe some different topics, things like that. But you can see the numbers. Spring, we had 7 events, 60 people attended. Summer, 9 events, 80 people attended. Fall, we're just getting into it. Most schools, their fall community ed is September through winter break. Some go into spring a little bit, but 3 events, 39 people. We got 9 more scheduled, and you can see the flyer kind of on the bottom of the right. Those are the classes we got. Try to do topics that are interested, that are going to get people there, and then add some water quality information, add some resources, materials. 2024 kind of other workshops. We did 5 of those, 180 people. Those included those shoreline informational meetings that we did for Forest, Bone, and Comfort, the Bone Lake delisting. We did a tour for Washington County Master Gardeners that was really attended. So we've done other events as well. But that's kind of those classes. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say that last 2024 other workshops area is pretty impressive. I mean, 80 people alone were probably at that Bone Lake delisting meeting. And so that leaves 100 for the other 4. I mean, just, you know, doing simple math here, that's pretty incredible. You know, before we were lucky to get 5 people at an event. So whatever you're doing there, obviously is working as far as the pre-notification of all of these events coming up. So that's really good.
And the way we do community ed, I say 10 people for a minimum, knowing that 8 will show up. So we don't run a class unless we have at least 10 folks signed up. That's
Okay.
no
That's
problem at Chisago and Hardwood. Forest Lake's been a bit of a stretch. We're going to try to push hybrid community ed classes so folks can attend in person and Zoom at the same time. We'll see how that goes at Forest Lake.
Yeah,
Trying to
that's a good idea.
again, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It works for us. It
yeah.
works for the board.
And especially in the winter, people want to, you know, hunker at home on their couch and
Yeah, exactly.
that way. Some website updates and analytics. I had in the memo, we're going to chat with that. A little history, January 1st, our previous website contractor stopped doing the work. They no longer do websites, so they kind of left us hanging a bit. Staff were doing our best, their best to kind of keep it functioning, but we didn't have much support at all. And the platform that was used by that contractor was a very technical, high-level website platform. And we were going over the traffic limit as well. So we had a set plan and we're going over it. So all those things were kind of building up on the website. So when I got there, I was like, boy, this concerns me a lot. Mostly a safety or security issue with the website. Like if it crashed, I don't know who we would have reached out to. We would have had to, you know, scramble there a little bit. So I think we got lucky on the website, limping along as long as we did. We looked at different options. We kind of went back and forth. We ended up hiring a new website contractor and went to a different website platform. The new website got launched in September. It doesn't look much different. It's just on a platform that is way easier to use, and we can do a lot of it in-house. Plus, we have design support, we have domain and hosting support, and the biggest thing is security monitoring. The old website, like one day in January, had 1,400 views one day. Usually that would throw a flag up and say, you might have got hacked or something happened that day. So that was kind of the big concern with the website. Going forward now we can start doing the changes and the updates, and you'll hear me. I'll be to the board. We're going to chat about that in the future, about kind of updating the website, changing the look of it a little bit. Let's make it more user-friendly and make it something folks really want to jump on.
Here, user-friendly. I like that.
Website analytics, I don't have a ton because it's a brand new site. So the website, you know, historic analytics are pretty much September. We average 20 users, give or take, a day are jumping on there. That's unique. So if I went on there 5 times in one day, it would only count me once. Probably Tori and I are, you know, on the website every day, if not other staff members or board members, things like that. So that throws it a little bit, but we're averaging, you know, got 584 users, so 20 a day, give or take. The top viewed items are the board meeting materials, the minutes, the agendas, things like that. Not a surprise. Contact info is number 2. So how do I get a hold of the staff and the board and things like that? Events and news is also big. And then the lake levels, especially the new lake level monitoring, that's been more popular the last couple of weeks as we got that rolling out. I wanted to throw up a little schematic just to show you. You could really dig into this data a lot more, but right now, the majority of folks are jumping on the website from a laptop or desktop or something along those lines. Only about a third, give or take, well, a little bit more than a third, are on their phone. And that's important when it comes to design, because you have to create a website that looks good on both. And that can be a little tricky sometimes on your mobile device and your desktop or your laptop, so. State of the Watershed, great event. I thought it was a great event. Boy, I tried my darndest to get the attendance. I had like 80 some at one time, and then folks were sneaking in the back by the bar back there, and some folks left before dinner, but I'm pretty solid. You know, we had right around 90 folks. We had about 105, I think, RSVPs. So, but then a few folks the day before or the day of said, hey, we're not going to make it, things like that. It was live streamed to Lakes Area TV. Hopefully you saw the guy there. Thank you to Manager Anderson and President Schmaltz for not swearing like a sailor, because it was, you know, on Lakes TV live at that time.
You're
so,
welcome.
Yeah. It's on Lakes TV YouTube. It's on our YouTube right now. So folks can still tune in and watch it. You want to relive it, you know, there you go. You can watch it on there. I haven't looked on the YouTube channel to see how many likes. Lakes TV probably has more view, or how many views. Lakes TV probably has more views on theirs than we do. But it's certainly on there. And then a recap of the kind of the cost of it. So the Watershed Champion Awards, the trophies, the certificates, and then we gave $100 gift cards to each person or each entity. The food and venue, that of course was the biggest chunk through the Legion. And then we had some random folders, papers, copies, materials. So we were right around $5,400 for it. I was ballparking 5,000, but I was ballparking that for 75, and we were over that and not much over on budget. So a little high, but I'm pretty comfy with it. So, but it's, you know, the board needs to be comfortable with it as well. And I don't know if there's any discussion. I know you guys mentioned this or talked about the event. If anybody wants to talk about it anymore, I guess.
Well, from my perspective, I think it was excellent. I mean, the only thing that I would change is when you're handing out the awards, open the box and actually take the award
Yeah,
out.
I thought about that,
Give it
yeah.
to them. The Chisago paper had these wonderful pictures,
Of
you know,
boxes.
big, you know, boxes.
I
But
thought about
it's
that.
such a pleasing, you know, an aesthetic looking award. So that was the only thing, but I had nothing but good comments. And so you know, that's really important when people, you know, come up to you as they're leaving and make those statements on, you know, on their own, you know, unprompted. And so I felt really good. It seemed to me that people, you know, got a lot out of the presentation and felt, you know, I think they had an interest in water, but they had a really good understanding that the district is doing some really good work. So that's my perspective. It was good.
President Schmaltz.
Go ahead, Chris.
I also would like to second that I thought it was very good. One thing I guess I would like to see in an expense breakdown in the future is maybe some advertising expenses. I know we relied a lot on, you know, just free posting and things through the newspaper, but I think we could tap into running some paid ads through social media and kind of boost the attendance of people that we might be less of, you know, top of mind with.
Good point. That's worthwhile on something like this.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Again, I
President
had the
Schmaltz.
same reaction as Manager Anderson, had a lot of good comments. I had a chance to talk with Leif Erickson, and he was really surprised about all the projects and work we had done that staff had shown, you know. I had talked about some of the stuff in the summary, but showing those actual projects and that, I had a big impact from him. So I think we have a lot of opportunity to share information and results that we've achieved. So it's a wide open out there for us if we just go after it.
Yeah, I think so too. But one of the other comments that came from Fran Miron, the commissioner, county commissioner from Washington. I don't know if you were, I think you might have been at the table. I think Mike was, but he was talking about how no other district does this kind of thing. And so what we're doing here with these annual State of the Watershed meetings and celebrating a milestone like this in 25 years, he was really impressed with. And the fact that we paid for a dinner so that people had, you know, some other motivation to be there other than listening to the district. He just couldn't say enough good things about it. So I think that's very important as well. Because he sees what the other districts are doing and I think we're just gonna keep doing better every year. You did a nice job, Adam, for the first year with the district. It was really well organized.
Yeah, it went off smoothly. That's always a worry, and everything clicked together very nicely. And I want to thank you again, and also the staff that pitched in and helped and set up all the tables. I saw a lot of people back there looking at stuff, so that was encouraging also. So good job all around. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it without other staff. Blaine stepped up certainly, and Mike presenting. A couple of my changes were we were fighting the bingo crowd, so we didn't get the bigger room that night. Again, if we had 75 folks, it would have been all right, but we certainly would like a bigger room next time, hopefully knowing we're going to get more attendance. And then, to kind of echo that photo setup, not the best with the screen in the background, things like that. So always learn from events, try to adjust to them and make the next one better.
Absolutely.
Yep.
If I may, the last slide I have is just kind of on the radar, what we got coming up yet. Community ed classes, we got 15 more scheduled. Those are the winter ones. Monthly newspaper articles, board has mentioned that. I did reach out to the newspapers, Chisago Press and Country Messenger said they would love to have us once a month do an article. So we'll start stepping up and doing that. I'll lean on Forest Lake a little bit more and see if we can get some press time with them. Mentioned the website remodeling a little bit, some changes on those we're going to get going. Newsletters, we're going to do a winter newsletter, which will be November into early December. And then 2025, I'd like to do 4 of them, 1 in print and the other 3 electronic. And the in print or the printed one, I'd be leaning toward the spring, kind of to go with our annual report, progress report, things like that. The new landowner welcome packets. So it's been in the works for a while. I met with the city of Forest Lake about it. I know the board has mentioned it. I've got some info from Aiden on it, kind of the new landowners. Right now, it's looking like about 25 a month would be going out, these packets, these informational, shooting for November 1st to get the first one out. Why I highlighted them in green is we now have some funding to do that, meaning that we had 13 grand in the budget for MRAP. Now that the district decided not to go with MRAP, it kind of frees up that budget. And that certainly will go toward the newsletter and the welcome packets, let alone the 25,000 MRAP was having. But we did have 13 grand in the budget for MRAP. So, the new landowner packets, that's like 6 grand a year right there. So those funds will certainly be allocated to kind of focused efforts within the district. Again, quality connections. And then youth education, we've got some baseline programs, but I'd certainly like to expand those education kits that schools can check out, in-class presentations, and then some more field events, things like that. So those are kind of just general on the radar, what we got coming up. That's all I got. Otherwise, a reminder in January, the second January meeting, we'll have the implementation plan for 2025, and then a recap of the summary of the 2024 outreach and education. So
Manager Anderson has a question, Adam?
Yes, if you can go back to that other slide, the homeowner packets, are you just doing those for Forest Lake? Or are you doing them for Scandia and that little bit of Wyoming that's part of our district?
So we get the list, or Aiden's getting the list from the counties, so it'll be Chisago and Washington County, so
Oh,
it'll
great.
all
Great.
the folks in the district. Yep, good question.
Wonderful.
Adam, when you say new landowner, are you talking about riparian owners or are you just talking about household lots?
Household, not, we're excluding things like trusts and that, but we're doing district wide, not just shoreline.
So, okay, you're not, okay.
I think we should have a shoreline separate little brochure if it's a riparian lot, because there are different concerns for riparian property.
Yeah, especially maybe in case of Forest Lake, maybe you list the ordinances that have to do with shorelines. Reminds people they can't cut trees down, you know, just something to see that. The other thing I want to suggest is that the Forest Lake Lake Association had a program for a couple of years where we gave a free riparian, a new lake owner, a packet, including a cooler. So we may want to check with Jerry Gruntner on that and see if Jerry can provide some details on that. The fellow that worked on that is still around. In fact, he was one of our inspectors last year. I can't think of his name right now, but he put that together for a couple of years. Who was it?
Jack McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you.
He's the lawn.
So
guy.
it'd just be good to look at that anyway, and that went over pretty well, but I think when Pat got involved with other things, it dropped by the wayside.
President
So great
Schmaltz.
job, though. I just thought we'll pass that on to you, something else to look at, so.
The ordinances would be how to find them on the internet though, right? On the web?
You can't find them on the web. There, I
You
mean,
can't?
he sent them to me. I looked for 2 days and I couldn't
All
find them.
right, that's a.
Yeah, that's,
material.
but it's only a half a sheet.
Yeah.
It's really small.
Okay, all right, that's.
Yeah.
President Schmaltz.
Yes, Chris.
I just had a couple of questions for Adam. I guess we'll go backwards since we're on this slide. Is there a way that, you know, there's 3 lake associations within the district. Is it possible for you to mention the lake associations within the new mailing? So that if they're interested in reaching out and doing kind of like a cross promotion?
Yeah, absolutely. And Manager Baki, I think Bone Lake does a welcome packet still, don't they?
The Forest Lake Lake Association does too.
Does too, gotcha. So gear up a little bit, we can adjust that a little bit, include different folks. So yeah, you know, I'll reach out, kind of see what other folks are doing, see how we can build off of that and include them.
Yeah, I think that would be great to just reference them. I do like the idea of mentioning the ordinances, but I also want consideration to be made. I mean, this is a welcome packet, so I'm not sure I'd lead with like, you know, there's a perception that the watershed is here to prevent you from enjoying your land. So I think we should be very aware of how we might come across. I think we, again, kind of get blinders on as far as like, you know, an ordinance isn't a big deal, but someone that just moved in might be turned off by that being the first thing that they might see in a welcome packet. So got to balance
That's a good
that.
suggestion. You may want to test a few and see what happens. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
there's a whole piece of tools and rules, and we can share that with the board as to what had been developed and shared previously. So
Yeah, it's educational though too. It's just not all instructional. It's educational in there too, and why they're doing it, which is important, I think.
You had mentioned the website analytics. With the change in contractor, did we lose all of the historical analytics that went along? Or is that accessible?
Manager Lowe.
We're not sure.
So it is there. It's really hard to find. We are struggling with those capabilities, and the previous website contractors have access to it, but of course, you know, they're not going to do it for free. I think we can keep digging away at it and plugging away at it, and maybe the new contractors can dig into it a little bit. It's there. We had a really tough time getting any basic information, let alone in depth.
Sure. I mean, that should be our data. So whether it's in a, you know, we should have access to it, in my opinion, whether the contractor's currently a vendor of ours or not. But last piece is the constant contact. Do you have either, you know, I know that you said you were going to include some more in-depth analysis in January. Can you include kind of what we're trending as far as email database and kind of what the open rates are, click rates, that type of thing?
I certainly can. Right now, again, we're using Constant Contact mostly for the board packets. But I've created landing pages for general news and events, and a couple other ones, so we'll get those up and going. But I can have the analytics for what we currently have, which is pretty much the board packet materials.
Sure.
And I think
That's
our
all. Thank
history
you.
in the past, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I just wanted to thanks, Adam. I appreciate the work, and this is kind of what I do for my job, so I might get a little more excited about some of the stuff, but
Any other questions for Adam? Great update, Adam. I think we all have a better appreciation. And I was gonna say, when I interrupted, Manager Loth, that historically we were event driven with communication, and now we've shifted into a more intentional, continuous type effort, which is what you started this year, and that's really what we need. So I think, that while the history may be interesting, it's probably not gonna compare to what we'll be able to do here in the next couple of years in terms of frequency and increasing our reach, et cetera. So really appreciate the work you put together on this thing, and it's well organized. I think we're going down a very successful path. Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to summary and approval of board direction. Chuck, I think manager or council Holtman is on by phone. Were you able to take some notes? We can't hear him by phone, can we?
He should be able to unmute himself.
Can you unmute yourself, Chuck?
He's not ready.
He's not here? No, he's at the bottom, isn't
But he's
Hold
ready.
on, let me try adjusting some settings. The phone might be getting tripped up.
he? Okay,
Okay, try again. I just allowed all participants to unmute themselves. Just opened up okay, try now.
Am I audible, Mr. Chair?
yes, finally, we got it debugged for you, Chuck. Thank you for your patience.
Yes. Yes, thank you. My apology. I have several items here. In doing the shoreline program review work, staff will incorporate consideration of how the DNR Score Your Shore and pledge programs have been used for outreach. Staff will bring to you a timeline for EOR's work regarding the building concept development. Staff will bring you preliminary sketches for project signage. In the new homeowner information packets, shoreline, staff will develop some materials particular to shoreline owners, including references to ordinances, but using care in how that's presented. And we'll also have references to the lake associations. And then staff will, well, I have a reference to the tools and rules materials, which Mr. Kinney indicated would be used to incorporate that information. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you, Council Holtman. Any corrections or additions? Okay, sounds like we're good to go then. Thank you. Any other topics before we adjourn? Our next meeting is on October 15th for everyone, and if there are no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Manager Anderson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Manager Lowe. Charlie, do you want to do the roll call vote?
Manager Lowe,
Aye.
Manager Anderson. Aye. Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Schmaltz.
Aye. Okay, motion adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Good meeting.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.